Okay. Hello students, welcome to my live teaching learning session of MMPC 20, Business Ethics and CSR. In today's session, we will complete this block 3 unit 1 CSR in Indian context and policy guidelines. What is the meaning of this CSR in Indian context and what policy guidelines are decided by the government for the industrial unit or manufacturing sector? How much CSR is necessary or mandatory for each and every business enterprises? So in today's session, we will discuss about CSR in Indian context and policy guidelines. Corporate social responsibility. You know that corporate means corporate sectors have some social responsibility for fulfilling the requirement of the whole society, whole country people. Corporate has not only responsibility for producing products and increasing their profit, they have some social responsibility towards whole society. They should produce more for gaining their profit, but beside that, they should do some noble work or charity for those people who are poor or who need that help. So, corporate social responsibility tells us about all these things, that what are the ethics of the business enterprises. Ethics are moral values which tells us what is good, what is bad, what is wrong, what is right. And corporate social responsibility tells us about the responsibility of the corporate sectors or business enterprises towards their whole society, customers, and environmental. Their responsibility is not only for society, their responsibility towards environment, their responsibility towards customers, that good quality product should be produced by the corporate sector so that consumer get good quality product at a lower cost or lower price, and beside that whole society get benefit from these corporate sectors. So what is the corporate sector responsibility, CSR, in India? CSR, you know that CSR is corporate social responsibility. Corporate social responsibility is not a new concept in India. Ever since their inception, corporate like Tata Group, Aditya Birla Group, Indian Oil Corporation, it's the name of few business enterprises, have been involved in serving the whole community through donations, charity events. Many other organizations have been doing their part for the society. The basic objective of CSR in these days to maximize the company's overall impact on the society and stakeholders. In stakeholders, we can include shareholders, customers, managers, CEO, decision planners, policymakers, etc. So CSR policies, practices, and programs are being comprehensively integrated by an increasing number of companies throughout their business operation and processes. A growing number of corporate sectors feel that CSR is not just another form of indirect expenses, but it is important for protecting the goodwill and reputation, defending attacks, and increasing business competitiveness. CSR not only help the whole society, it helps in increasing the reputation of the corporate sector. It also helps in increasing the goodwill and reputation of the business sector. And you know that at present we are going in globalized world. We are moving towards globalization, and whole business activities are enter in competitive world. So in competitive world, if you want to maintain your reputation or you want to increase your goodwill in all over the world, then CSR definitely helps in this target. So CSR not only tells us that how a company can increase their profit. Company profit, the main goal of each and every company is to earn maximum profit. But beside profit, the main goal of all corporate sector should do better for whole society, for the upliftment of the rural people, for the upliftment of the backward regions, or those people who are in need, who are very poor, and they can do with the help of charity, with the help of grant. And government has made some law regarding the CSR, that 2% CSR, the contribution of each corporate sector must be 2% of their total earning towards the whole society's betterment or upliftment. So CSR in India is not a new concept. Now next is, why is CSR important for SMEs in India, small medium enterprises? CSR is not important only for those corporate sector who are involved in large scale business enterprises, or who are in a huge uh, power of producing goods. CSR is important for small medium enterprises in India to manage risk by integrating environmental and social performance with business strategy, to strengthen your license to operate in the local community due to a strong relationship with stakeholders and regulatory authorities, to access international markets. If you want to access international markets, you want to compete with global business players, then CSR is very important. To improve access to funds and investors, to reduce cost, savings on of inputs, increase in productivity. And how we can reduce cost? These are three methods. One is, if you save inputs without any wastages of inputs, because input is very necessary for the business firm. You know that input always used for making output, and production is the function which shows the relationship between input and output. First, we use raw material or inputs, then we can convert it into finished goods or output. If we use efficiently or economically all the inputs, then we can reduce cost. And if we increase the productivity level or production level, then we can earn some benefits internally and externally. This is known as economies of scale. And third is improvement of supply chain and customer relation. Supply chain should be improved, and customer relation should be improved for reducing the cost of the production and increasing the goodwill or reputation of the business firm in the market. So CSR is very important for SMEs because it is really helpful to manage the risk by integrating environmental and social performance, to strengthen the license to operate in the local community due to the strong relationship with stakeholders and regulatory authorities, And you know that stakeholders means planners, policymakers, CEO, chief executive officers, or shareholders, and other person who involved in business enterprises. It increases the relationship between stakeholders and regulatory authorities. And we can access international markets with the help of CSR, and it also increase the funds and investors at global level. Next is CSR initiatives in India. What initiatives are made by Indian government for this CSR? Ministry of Corporate Affairs published the Corporate Social Responsibility Voluntary Guidelines in 2009. Guidelines on corporate social responsibility for central public sector enterprises, also given by government in March 2010. National Foundation of Corporate Citizenship Governance means NFCG in short name, and is National Foundation of Corporate Citizenship Governance in partnership with Confederation of Indian Industry means CII, Institute of Company Secretaries of India ICSI, and Institute of Chartered Accountant of India ICAI. It means National Foundation of Corporate Citizens Governance in partnership with Confederation of Indian Industry and Institute of Company Secretaries of India and Institute of Chartered Accountant of India. All these make guidelines for CSR. So initiative, what initiative made by Indian government or different institutes for increasing this CSR importance in present world. So the mainly initiative, first initiative was taken by Ministry of Corporate Affairs, published the Corporate Social Responsibility Voluntary Guidelines in 2009. It's a formal initiatives. Informally, uh, this CSR is going on since independence, but officially or formally, it was developed by with the help of these corporate affairs. CSR initiatives, it's a close cooperation with OECD as a non-member country. India is on the governing board of the OECD Development Center, and it is also participates as an observer in some OECD committees and various working groups. The OECD Development Center innovate innovative solutions to global challenges of development, poverty alleviation, and inequality. The main purpose of this OECD Development Center is that to provide innovative solution of global problems. And what are the global problems? Like poverty. Poverty is a problem which exists in each and every country all over the world. That's why in sustainable development goals, poverty alleviation is the main goal of SDG. And inequality, you know that in developing countries there is a massive poverty and inequality exist. And poverty is related with unemployment. And who is poor? A poor person is that person who is not able to fulfill his basic requirements or basic needs like food, clothes, shelter, education, health, sanitation. And in some African countries, there is a massive poverty, and and Other backward countries and other developing countries, poverty at present still exists. So, poverty alleviation is the main global challenge of development because without alleviating poverty, without removing this inequality of income and wealth, without increasing the standard of living of the country people, we can't achieve higher growth rate of the economy. So OECD Development Center uh, tells us about the innovative solution to the global challenges of development like poverty and poverty alleviation and inequality. These problems can be solved if globally taken by all a major step for removing these problems. India also supports the OECD regionally focused activities in Asia, hosting regional forums and workshops on issues including investment, taxation, financial education, private pensions, and development. India also supports OECD for these main uh, issues like investment and taxation, how much taxation or tax rate should be imposed on corporate sectors so that corporate sector can give taxation and side by side they can do some charity work for the upliftment of the society people. And financial education is also very necessary for corporate sectors and private pensions and development. India also support OECD for focusing these activities. Next is current status and perceptions of CSR in India. In India, near about 50% of Indian companies consider CSR, corporate social responsibility, as a part of sustainable business rather than philanthropy. Philanthropy means charity. Philanthropy means donation, grant. Rather than grant, charity, and some noble work, CSR is a part of sustainable business. It means business should work which not hampered or which not adversely affect the environment because environmental protection is also very necessary and CSR includes all aspects of the economy like environmental aspect, economic aspect, social aspect, political aspect, religious aspect, and all these things are included in CSR. So not only philanthropy, not only CSR or corporate responsibility towards only grant and giving donations to and doing some charity work for the poor people. Their main consideration is related with sustainable business and safe environment or eco-friendly techniques should be used by business enterprises because clean environment is uh, necessary for all because without this clean environment and if we hamper or if we uh, degrade the environment then no one can survive for the longer time period in present world. So 50% of the Indian companies consider CSR as a part of sustainable business rather than philanthropy. An imbalance between internal and external CSR dimensions are the vast majority of Indian companies include external dimensions. Only 20% include internal dimensions like working conditions and environmental practices. It means there is an imbalance between the internal dimensions of CSR and external dimensions of CSR. It means CSR has two dimensions, one is internal, other is external. The vast majority of Indian companies include external dimensions, but only 20% include internal dimensions like working conditions. Working conditions of the labor should be better so that labor can work easily or comfortably without any disturbances. In this case, absenteeism can be stopped and presence of workers will increase. And if presence of workers will increase, they will do more work and they will give more contribution in business profits and environmental practices. However, the vast majority of multinational corporations or multinational companies consider CSR as a part of sustainable business. Multinational companies, you know that multinational companies are giant size companies, huge size companies who are doing their business globally, and they always make form of oligopolistic market structure in each and every country. Few sellers exist and few multinational companies. One multinational company open their branches in a small quantity because they want to do business globally, not in only in a particular country. That's why they remain always in a oligopolistic market structure, and they invest lots of money, and they bring their own capital, they bring their own technologies and their professionals or experts, and they start their business in host countries like developing countries where population is abundant, labor is available at a cheaper rate, and they are suffering from capital formation or lack of capital formation. Those countries who are suffering from the problem of investment, they don't have proper money to invest in business enterprises. Multinational corporations fill the gap of saving and investment. And vast the majority of multinational companies, mainly they are doing their business in all over the world, and as a CSR, corporate social responsibility, they are doing sustainable business. They want to improve sustainable business, means save environment and without degrading the environment. They want to use that type of technology which is known as green technology, eco-friendly technology for sustainable business. Or sustainable business, we can say that sustainable means we use the resources in such a way so that present generation needs as well as future generation needs both will be satisfied without any compromisation. So it including a better balance between internal and external CSR dimensions. So multinational corporations are playing very important role at present in all over the world, and they are doing CSR. They are doing in context of CSR as a part of sustainable business, and they are including a better balance between internal dimensions of CSR and external balance of dimensions of CSR. Now, the background of CSR in India. Today's buzzword, corporate social responsibility or CSR, has been a part of the Tata Group ever since the days of Jamshedji Tata, right from 1892, at the time of colonization. At the time of colonization, when Britishers ruled over whole Indian economy, at that time, CSR, corporate social responsibility, has been a part of the Tata Group ever since the days of Jamshedji Tata, right from 1892, workers' welfare requirement of the country, granting scholarship for further studies abroad in 1892, supporting Gandhiji's campaign for racial equality in South Africa, first science center, hospitals, and atomic research center, providing relief and rehabilitation to natural disaster affected area. Tata initiated various labor welfare laws like the establishment of welfare department was introduced in 1917 and enforced by law in 1948. Maternity benefit was introduced in 1928 and enforced by law in 1946. It means CSR is not a new phenomenon. It's not a new concept. It's not a new concept in Indian economy. In Indian economy, CSR has been part of the Tata Group ever since the days of Jamshedji Tata, right from 1892. It means since 1892 to till now, CSR in India is, has been working for the welfare of the whole community, whole society, and so many welfare schemes or benefits or welfare programs introduced by Tata for the welfare of the whole community, and all these various campaign and various welfare programs enforced by law also, like workers welfare requirement, granting scholarship for the further studies abroad, Gandhiji's supporting Gandhiji's campaign for racial equality. You know that in South Africa, before 1990s, there was apartheid or racial discrimination exist, and racial discrimination was abolished by Nelson Mandela and Gandhiji's campaign for racial equality. They want to bring racial equality, not difference between rich, uh, white and black people, because there was a massive differences exist in South Africa um, in the name of racial inequality, but they want to support Gandhiji's campaign for racial equality in South Africa. First Science Center, hospitals and research, atomic research center, also introduced by uh, Tata Group in 1892, and provide relief and rehabilitation of national disaster affected places. Tata initiated these various welfare programs, various welfare laws enforced by law, uh, made by in introduced the law. The welfare scheme was introduced in 1918, 1917, but enforced by law in 1948. Like maternity benefit was introduced by Tata Group in 1928, but enforced by law in 1946. So CSR in India, its background is going on since 1892. So it's not a new phenomenon. Now CSR in India has traditionally been seen as a philanthropic activity, and philanthropic activity, you know that in this uh, corporate sector mainly work for some arrange money from grants, charity, and donate money to those people who are in need or who are very needy person, and those who are living in those areas who are regionally very backward or poor. So CSR in India has traditionally been seen as a philanthropic activity, And in keeping with the Indian tradition, it was an activity that was performed but not deliberated. As a result, there is limited documentation on specific activities related to this concept. The Companies Act 2013 has introduced the idea of CSR to the forefront, and through its disclose or explain mandate is promoting greater transparency and disclosure. Schedule 7 of the Act, which lists out the CSR activities, suggests communities to be the focal point. It means CSR in India traditionally it was made by corporate sector as a philanthropic activity, but at present not only philanthropic activities made by corporate sector are doing very nice work for the betterment of the society, and at present the law enforced to these corporate sector, and the government has made mandatory that 2% of their total earning they should spend, they must have to spend for the betterment of the whole society. So CSR in India at present is increasing, and the role of corporate social responsibility is increasing, and the Companies Act 2013 has introduced this idea of CSR to the forefront or in front of the whole society, and it's a mandatory. uh, when it becomes mandatory, then it will increase the transparency and disclosure also. And Schedule 7 of this act, which lists out all the CSR activities, they suggest the communities to be the main focal point. It means the whole society, whole community is the main priority of the corporate sector. They should do better or good things for the betterment of the whole society. Next is CSR rule in India. In India, the concept of CSR is governed by Clause 135 of the Companies Act 2013, which was passed by House of Parliament and had received the assent of the President of India on 29th August 2013. The CSR provisions within the Act is applicable to companies with an annual turnover of 1,000 crore and in Indian currency and more, or a net worth of 500 crore and more, or a net profit of 5 crore and more. It means the corporate social responsibility according to this Act of Companies Act 2013 and the clause 135, which was passed by both the House of the Parliament and received the assent of the President of India on 29th August 2013. The main provision under this act regarding CSR is applicable to those companies whose annual turnover is 1000 crore in Indian currency or more, net worth is 500 crore and more, and net profit is 5 crore and more. So this act, because we know that before 1990s there was a act of MRTP. MRTP Act is Monopolistic Restrictive Trade Practices Act. MRTP Act was introduced in 1969 At that time, public sector played very important role and privatization was very less. And government restrict the amount of investment near about government fix the amount that no one company can invest more than 100 crore rupees in any business enterprises. At that time, government wanted to restrict the entry of the big corporate sector because government wanted to make equal distribution or economic power not concentrated only in few hands. That why government put this restriction of 100 crore rupees that no one, a big firm or any other firm can invest more money in their business enterprises. If any firm or industry invest more than 100 crore rupees before 1990s, government put some restrictions on that firm and industry to control over the concentration of economic power. That's why this act was launched by government or introduced by government. MRTP Act, Monopolistic Restrictive Trade Practices Act. But in 1991 economic policy, a new economic policy in which liberalization, privatization, and globalization was taken by the by this policy, and in this policy, government abolished this MRTP Act, and at present, government has increased the limit of the investment. There is no such limit put by the government because each and every business enterprises, those who have power to invest huge amount of money in businesses, they can easily invest because at present we are going towards competitive uh, industrial sector, and at present we are moving towards in a competitive world. At present there is no restriction imposed by the government regarding investment or investing money in business enterprises. Any business enterprises can invest huge amount of money. There is no restrictions because MRTP Act has been abolished. At present, Competition Act 2002 is going on. And according to this Competition Act, each and every firm can invest huge amount of money. Whatever they have power, they can invest their money in business enterprises. So this investment limit or criteria of the investment regarding corporate sectors like 100 crore rupees, which was imposed at the time of 1990s or before 1990s. But at present, this act has been abolished, MRTP Act, because at that time government don't want did not want to make monopoly power, and government discourage monopoly power, and government discourage the concentration of few sellers or few business enterprises. But at present we are going or moving on competitive world, so CSR provision within the act is applicable to those companies uh, whose turnover is 1000 crore and net worth is 500 crore and more, and net profit is 5 crore and more. So this act encourages companies to spend at least 2%. At least means minimum. At least 2% of their average net profit in the previous 3 years on CSR activities. So, according to this Companies Act 2013, and the clause of 135, which is governed by this act and passed by both the houses of the parliament and assent by the President of India on 29th August 2013, it encourages at least all the corporate sector to spend money at least 2% of their average net profit in the previous 3 years on CSR activities. Now next is the impact of CSR foundations in India. You know that so many foundations are formed by the government for running these CSR activities smoothly. What is the impact of the CSR foundations in India? India has been one of the countries that possesses the richest traditions of CSR because since 1892 to till now, CSR activities are going on. As more and more CSR foundations in India are coming up with the entrepreneurs are constantly being made aware of the social responsibility they carry along with their companies to the nation as well as its residents. So the impact of CSR Foundation in India is that at present, most of the CSR foundations which already exist in India are coming up with the entrepreneurs or big corporate sectors are constantly being made aware of the social responsibility. They are already aware about the social responsibility which they carry along with their companies to the nation as well as its residents. Next is what is CSR? We have discussed in first session and second session that what is CSR? CSR is corporate social responsibility. While there may be no single universally accepted definition of CSR, each definition that currently exists underpins the impact that business have on society at a large and societal expectations of them. Although the roots of CSR lie in philanthropic activities such as donations, charity, relief, work or working conditions, etc., of corporations. Globally, the concept of CSR has evolved and now encompasses all related concepts such as triple bottom line. Triple bottom line is corporate citizenship, philanthropy, strategic philanthropy, shared values, corporate sustainability, and business responsibility. From numerous definitions given by various worldwide organizations, it is clear that CSR approach is holistic and integrated with the core business strategy for addressing social and environmental impacts of businesses. CSR needs to address the well-being of the whole society, all stakeholders, and not just the company's shareholders. Philanthropic activities are not only a part of CSR, which otherwise constitute a much larger set of activities entailing strategic business benefits. So CSR is corporate social responsibility. It not only include philanthropic activity, it include triple bottom line. This concept is related with the triple bottom line concept in which social citizenship, philanthropy, strategic philanthropy, shared values, corporate sustainability, business responsibility all are included. And this CSR definition was given by numerous or various definitions given at worldwide level or organizations so that CSR is a very holistic approach or integrated approach in which all activities of the corporate sectors towards society for the betterment of the society are included in this CSR. Now next is CSR development in India. How CSR developed in India? What are the various phases of development of CSR in India? There are four phases of CSR development in India. First phase is 1850 to 1940. At that time, When India was colonized, not independent, not freedom, we got, and 1850 to 1914 time period driven by noble deeds of philanthropy and charity. At that time, philanthropic activities and charity included in CSR, and that was the basic activities of the corporate sector at the time period of 1850 to 1914, and this phase is known as first phase of corporate social responsibility. And you know that in India, corporate social responsibility initiative was firstly taken by Jamshedji Tata in 1892, and in second phase, which was 1914 to 1960, largely influenced by Mahatma Gandhi's theory of trusteeship. Industrialists pressurized to show their dedication towards the benefit of the society. So, in 1914 to 1960s time period, which was largely influenced by Mahatma Gandhi's theory of trusteeship, that each and every business entrepreneur should work as a trustee, not as a owner. Trusteeship means we all are trustee. If a banker work in banks, if a manager or the owner of the company assume himself as a trustee, then he will work better for the whole society. But if he think that he is the owner of the company, then he will only do for earning more profit and not do the social work for the welfare of the whole community. So Mahatma Gandhi's theory of trusteeship mainly deals with the trusteeship nature, not the ownership nature. So industrialists were pressurized to show their dedication towards the benefit of the society during the second phase of the CSR. In third phase, which exists at the time period of 1960s to 1980s, CSR influenced by the emergence of public sector undertaking to ensure proper distribution of wealth. It means if wealth is properly distributed, then inequality can be removed and poverty can be eliminated. So third phase mainly focused uh, on this thing that corporate sector or all public sector undertakings should ensure for the proper distribution of wealth and to make uh, equality between the income level and reduce inequality and reduce poverty. And the fourth phase, 1980s onwards until the present, Indian companies integrated CSR into a sustainable business strategy. 1980s onwards, CSR, which is the fourth phase of CSR, in this phase, Indian companies integrated CSR activities into a sustainable business strategy. What started as charity in a first phase is now understood and accepted as responsibility. It means CSR initially it was started as a charity or philanthropic activity, but now it is accepted as a responsibility that each and every corporate sector has responsible towards whole society betterment. So it's mandatory to spend at least 2% of their average net profit for the well-being of the communities. So these are the four phases of CSR development in India. Next is CSR progression in India. It evolved through the concept of giving, an integral part of Indian culture. Philanthropy, religious donations, modern connotations are Gandhian concept of trusteeship. This was the second phase. Bombay Plan was established in 1944 to 45. First initiative by leading business houses Tata, Bajaj, Birla Group through FICCI, and individual initiatives by individual corporate. So CSR, this is the progression of corporate social responsibility in India. Firstly, CSR activities are started through philanthropic activities, and at present, it's mandatory or it's a responsibility of all the corporate sector. And in first phase, it was based on philanthropic activity. In second phase, Gandhian concept of trusteeship. In third phase, it was based on equality, that public sector should distribute wealth among whole society equally. And in fourth phase, it is related with responsibility. This concept is accepted as responsibility. Next is CSR mandate. Now, Companies Bill 2013, the clause 135 of the Companies Bill requires a qualifying corporation to spend at least 2% of its average net profits made in the preceding 3 financial years. Now, bill is applicable to any company with a net worth of 500 crore rupees or more, turnover of 1000 crore or more, and net profit of 5 crore or more in the fiscal year. Fiscal year is financial year. This is the mandatory bill, was passed in 2013, and it is mandatory to spend 2% of their total average net profit by the all companies. Now, next is activities listed in Schedule 7 is training to promote rural sports. It means corporate sectors should promote and should give training to promote rural sports, nationally recognized sports, or Paralympic sports and Olympic sports. Contribution in the Prime Minister National Relief Funds or any other funds set by the central government for socio-economic development and relief and welfare of the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and other backward classes, minorities, and women. Contributions or funds provided to technology incubators located within academic institutions which are approved by the central government. These projects are related with rural development projects. So these activities which are listed in Schedule 7, these activities basically encourage the upliftment of the rural area by supporting the sports of the rural area, nationally recognized sports, Paralympic sports and Olympic sports, and it also uh, it also encouraged the contribution to the Prime Minister's National Relief Fund or any other fund which is made by central government for socio-economic development of the country people and welfare of the country people, or SC, ST, and other backward regions, minorities, and women. Next is general principles of CSR. Now, the general principles of CSR is that corporations are primarily economic institutions. This is the first principle of corporate social responsibility, that corporate sectors are primarily economic institutions. It means they are generally made for doing economic activities or earning more and more profit, must follow the law. It is very necessary for every business enterprises. Managers must act ethically or in a right way, not in a wrong way. They must aware about good or bad, right and wrong, and they should know about their moral values. So managers must act ethically and duty to correct the adverse social impacts they cause. Whatever they are causing, if there is a negative impact on the society, so there is their duty is to correct the adverse impact uh, which put on whole society. So they should correct the adverse social impacts which they cause. These are the general principles of CSR. Now, CSR in public sector enterprises. Corporate social responsibility are governed by guidelines issued by Department of Public Enterprises. New guidelines on CSR and sustainability of corporate public sector enterprises came into effect on April 1, 2013. According to the new guidelines, a company is now expected to disclose even its most routine business activities and operations. And CPSC means corporate private sector enterprises are asked to formulate their policies with a balanced emphasis on all aspects of the CSR and sustainability and by both dimensions, internal and external. While the earlier guidelines focused mainly on CSR activities for external stakeholders, the revised guidelines take internal stakeholders, particularly employees or workers, into account in a much more serious way. To fortify and sustain this trend, sustainability reporting has been made mandatory for all public sector enterprises in India. Next is federal government policies and legislations are specific issues, policies and legislation like tax reduction. If any person uh, if any person donate their money or give charity work or give donations for the noble cause for the upliftment of the society, government give tax rebates, tax reduction in respect to donations to certain funds, charitable institutions through the Act of 18D, Section 18D, Child Labor Laws 1996, Environmental Protection Act 1986 and many sub-regulations, Right to Information Act 2005. So federal government policies and legislation, these are some issues, policies and legislation in which government gives some reliefs and some concessions regarding taxation and other laws government made for the welfare of the society. Like child labor law is that law which is uh, giving protection to the child workers, that children should get education at the age of 6 to 14, and after that they can do work, their contribution in work, but not before that. So education is necessary for all. And if any person uh, engaged children to their business enterprises or any other factories, that is enforceable by law, it is a punishable offense. And Environmental Protection Act or Consumer Protection Act also introduced in 1986, and Right to Information Act is 2005. Next is additional items included in Schedule 7. Contribution towards slum area development. You know that Schedule 7 mainly focuses for the upliftment of the rural area. So in this case, contribution towards slum area development and contribution under Swachh Bharat Kosh and Clean Ganga Fund also included in Schedule 7. Next is India's 2% CSR law mainly tells us that each and every business enterprises should spend at least 2% of their average net profit for the welfare of the whole society. So this law, this 2%, at least 2% provision is fixed by the government according to the and enforceable by laws. Now, mandatory CSR due diligence. Diligence is the activity for social welfare. That CSR, you know that it is very increasingly understood as a management process which inspires process-oriented laws. This regulatory approach is to require companies to identify social and environmental risks associated with its business operations and execute reasonable plans to prevent harm resulting from the identified risk. France duty of vigilance law adopted in 2017 and spread heads this approach. So, mandatory CSR is mandatory due diligence. And mandatory CSR duty under corporate law is that 2% of at least 2% of the each business enterprises of their net average profit they must have to spend for the upliftment of the whole society. This act was uh, mainly established in 2013 Companies Act and clause 135. So CSR has evolved into a comprehensive system of daily business management. Mandatory CSR may refer to the general duty to act in a socially responsible way. Available legal experience suggests that CSR duty is often established under corporate law, and it's a duty of all the corporate sector to work legally and to work better or good for the whole society. Now we can conclude from the today's session that CSR is very important thing, and CSR is not a new phenomenon, not a new concept in India. With safety, health and environment protection high on its corporate agenda, Indian Oil is committed to conducting business with a strong environment conscience so as to ensure sustainable development, safe workplace, and enrichment of the quality of the life of the country people, employees, customers, and whole community. CSR or corporate social responsibility play very important role to achieve all these uh, goals of the economy. Thank you.